Hello, and welcome to the GM prep for the D&D 5e tabletop RPG campaign, New Game Plus. I'm going to be streaming this GM prep. We're going to go over what New Game Plus is and what I've got so far at a very high level of world building, and then I'm going to talk some more about it. People who were interested in hearing me babble and ramble and see what I've got so far. So there's going to be a lot of ums and ohs and long silences as I write stuff down and then erase it. So, welcome. New Game Plus is an idea to take 4 players and stick them without memory in a cave with a small book, which I'll be writing, that will explain the world to them. These are the gods, these are the countries, you know, etc., etc. They travel out into the world wondering who they are, what they do, and then they find out when they die, when any of them dies, they all snap back to the beginning, back to that moment when they first came out of the cave. Now, a couple things should be noted here. First off, this book will be written by someone in the universe, and so will be biased. So the initial information they have about the world will definitely not 100% be true, or at the very least will be skewed in a direction. The second thing is, I haven't decided whether the players are being, like, formed out of the nothingness, or whether they've been brought from another world to this one, and then they have no memories at all, or whether they're residents of this world who've been chosen and their memories have been taken from them and they can recover it. Still working on that part. At the high level, the game is about Dark Souls style death. I'm going to be taking out all the normal limits and stops and just designing a world. And if the players ignore warning signs like, hey, this guy sounds like he's going to be a pretty tough fight, or maybe, even though we're pretty tough, maybe we can't kill 150 orcs in a camp all at once, or, geez, did that asshole just poison us? And now we're dead. As they die, they'll begin taking sanity damage. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to implement this yet. But the Dungeon Master's Guide, of course, covers sanity. I'll probably be using some of that, but not all of it, and coming up with my own list. I think that covers most of the high-end stuff, although there were a lot of questions on Discord. So I should probably try to remember what they went over. Let's see here. So there are several countries in this world, and there are layers of history. So let's start at the beginning. In the beginning, there's an ancient empire of people that lived with the gods, of a race I haven't decided yet, but it's not going to be any of the playable races. I might not even name the race. It might just be the race of the gods, right? They were everywhere, they did everything, and then something happened. They created most of the other races. They are like magicians and shapers and speakers who create things in the world, and they make elves, they make halflings, they make all that good stuff and unleash them in the world, and then one day they're all gone. They die out. I'm not sure what happens here, right? But they're gone, and all that's left of them are these wonderful cities. The elves are the most militant of the races at the moment. They take over the reins. It's not even called the Elven Empire, because that would imply that there's anyone left to resist them. All the other races fall in line under the elves. The elves move into the old cities. They don't know exactly how to work stuff. Then the elves get, like, Roman Empired. They start breaking up. They start having internal struggles. So they create humans. they create the entire race of humanity as like soldiers, loyal dogs to fight for them. This is where their problem starts. Sure, for a few hundred years, this goes great. They've got these really dumb, loyal dogs that they can just unleash upon the other races or upon elven rebels, but cracks are starting to form in society. The other races are thinking, if we're always getting suppressed by the elves, should we really be following the elves? The elves are starting to get trouble among themselves. Humans begin getting divided up, and all of a sudden humans are thinking, hey, there's more of us than there are elves at this point. What if we just make our own country? So they do. The elves recede back to their traditional homelands. Now, all these ancient cities have been half looted by the elves, and now there's elven ruins on top of the ancient empire's ruins. So in this world, all of the magic items, except for stuff that's being generated in the here and now, are either from very deep ruins that have recently been uncovered that are from the ancient empire. So we're talking, you go into a mine, you hit a shaft, and you accidentally uncover an underground bunker or something like that. You go to an ancient ruin, a wall collapses, and all of a sudden there's a new passage there. That's super rare, and the stuff in there is extremely dangerous and super, super worthwhile. High-level magic items. Elven Empire, their ruins are either on top of the ancient empire ruins, or just in scattered old elven outposts or bunkers, stuff like that. So dungeons are going to take one of three categories. A literal, actual dungeon, like, you know, someone's basement where they've captured a princess, or a cave where a monster is planning an attack, or it's going to be an ancient elven ruin, or it's going to be an ancient empire ruin, right? These are the kinds of dungeons we're going to be looking at in this game about Dungeons and Dragons. Now we've got the world. Humanity is in the center of the world. They're on the rise now. They're starting to spread out, and humanity isn't holding it together anymore. They have their own ways of thinking, and so now they're breaking up. All the countries are forming on their own. So let's start with who's where. The players are going to be starting out in a little cave at the bottom of a place called Freehold. So you can see down here, there's this cave of Freehold. This art is by Unidus, by the way. He'll be doing all of the high-level world art for us. The southern coast of Freehold has a kind of mostly impassable toxic swamp. There's also a elven ruin on top of an ancient ruin in the southeast corner. No one goes there because monsters come out. It's real bad, y'all. It's real bad. Just north of the cave is the first village the players encounter. There's only one village and one town in all of Freehold. Flemia is the village. Across the rest of the area, there are plenty of like thorps and hamlets, small collections of villagers who maybe they need help, but you can stay there, etc., etc. But there's only one village and one town, and those are the only places where people gather in numbers. North of Flemia, there's a place called Bondarak. It's big city stuff here in Bondarak. They got a wall around their town, and the mayor's house is made of clay. Can you believe it? Clay. This is the kind of stuff we're dealing with here. I'm working on the ecology of Freehold. Let's talk about what Freehold is. There is a place, and that place is called the Monarchy of Royal Magnar. It is a plains nation. It's the dead center of the world. Freehold is the southern county of it. The count who runs Freehold tries to pretend like he's not part of the country. He's like, we're not really part of Royal Magnar, but when tax time comes, he pays. And when they need people for the army, he calls up the militia. So the people in Freehold are going to confuse the players. They're going to tell the players they're not part of the magnate. the Kingdom of Royal Magnar. However, they really are. The people with their pride are freeholders. But yeah, they're really part of the Royal Magnar. So another part of this game is that all these wonderful countries are going to be on playing cards in and out. Yes, it's like Texas. Haha, chat. Very funny. Actually, that's not bad. All of the maps that Unidis designs are going to be on playing cards, and you'll be able to assemble these cards into a world map. So let's do some high-level map drawing skills. I'm awful at this. Alright, so down here we got Freehold. Freehold has only, as you can see here, like one little connector to the main continent. Then we've got Royal Magnar. Royal Magnar is like this. Royal Magnar has a problem. It's the largest human nation on Earth. It's going places and it's doing things. Things are going great for them, except for one problem. There's this guy called the Demon Lord, who's actually the archfiend of this world. And this dude is wrecking everybody's stuff. He has 4 servants he sent out into the world, and one of them is his general. And the general shows up in Royal Magnar and is like, who wants to serve the Demon Lord? Great. You're now a member of the Demon Lord's army. You don't want to serve the Demon Lord? Then die. Or I could pay you a giant pile of money and you serve the Demon Lord. So he's going around and causing trouble. His army is spreading out across the country. This is the first big conflict the players are going to see. After they get out of Freehold, which is not without its dangers, they'll be heading into Royal Magnar. When they get there, they're going to be seeing the capital. There'll be several small villages and towns, but at the capital, they'll encounter the Adventurers Guild. And from there, they will have the starting point for all the traditional D&D adventures. This is going to be mostly sandbox, and because every time they die, time resets. I forgot to say something about the time resetting that was super important. We'll get back to it. Every time they come back, they'll have to re-register at the Adventuring Guild, etc., etc., etc. But what adventures they take will be up to them. They could just completely ignore the Adventuring Guild, they probably won't, and do whatever they want in the world. I don't care. I'm pretty good at coming up with stuff. But the Adventuring Guild is definitely where the players will start at. And a lot of the early quests coming out of the capital are going to be stopping vanguard squads of this general, trying to get nobles back on track. You know, like, the king is issuing a quest to head to Viscount Salanthus' estate and entreaty him to return back to the side of light and good and to fight the Demon King instead of join his side. Or given who the King of Royal Magnar is, they'll probably actually be more like, kill Viscount Salanthus and blame it on, you know, the Dark Lord. Alright, so just east of this area is a place called the Belgond Prefectory. It is a set of mountains that'll be something like this. And that's not the only mountains. This actual entire area is going to be covered in mountains for a reason I will explain in just a minute. Alright, so these mountains down here are the Dwarven Mountains. Think like Rocky Mountains kind of deal. We're talking big mountains. Not really flat, lots of sharp, kind of newish in the Earth creation kind of category. We're not talking like Mount Fuji or Himalayas or anything. There won't be icy tops on top of these mountains except during winter. But it'll be cold, and there'll be tree lines and stuff like that. The dwarves live in clan holds here. They dig into the earth. Every once in a while, someone will want to start a new clan or a new family. They'll set out, go down some unexplored tunnel or create a new one, start a new clan. The clans meet up and they follow the will of all the clans. These guys have a thing. The dwarves have an agreement. There are 12 dragons in this world, one for each color of dragon. That is the maximum and minimum number of dragons. There will never be more or less than that, of course, except if they die. But dragons are immortal, so they only die if someone tries to kill them. They have made a deal with the dragon in their area. They bring the dragon treasure, they treat it nicely, they say nice things about it. The dragon is like Switzerland. This dragon is the wise gold dragon. That everyone in the world is like, we got problems, we need a super smart dragon to give us advice. He's like the letter to the editor. He's the guy you send messages to and are like, hey man, Vanilla Ice me, solve this problem. And they're this guy's protector. Between the dwarves and the dragon, they got a problem. It's orcs. Orcs is always the problem. The orcs have settled into this nice set of mountains up here, and they're raiding in every direction. Where are they raiding? Why are they raiding to? They're raiding the dwarves, but they aren't, suspiciously, they aren't going this way. Shwoop. They aren't going down here. They're going in several other directions, including this way, and this way. Where are they going and why are they going there? Great question, me. The first answer is they're going to the Clans of the Flow. The Clans of the Flow live up here. Clans of the Flow are Norsemen. This is not a solid land area. This is a series of icebergs. This is a series of islands. This is your Ireland, Greenland, Iceland, Norway, Finland, even Denmark kind of thing. There's a lot of coastline. There's a lot of rocks. It's cold. There's ice everywhere. Humans, half-orcs, and friendly orcs live up in this area for the Clans of the Flow. They are the origin of the barbarian. They exude knowledge is power. That is their philosophy. When you come of age, they send you out into the world. You have to learn something for the clan, and then you can come back. If you don't come back, you're a coward, and you're useless to the clan. Are there fords? Yes, of course there's fjords. You can't have Nords without fjords. So, the Clans of the Flow have this problem. The orcs are raiding them, and it's getting really bad. Like, the orcs are hitting them seriously hard. And there's no one for the clans to raid anymore. They used to raid Royal Magnar, but now they don't even have the military strength to do that anymore. They are a civilization in decline. These people don't have books. They rely on oral traditions. They don't produce anything of value in terms of monetary gain, right? They make their own artwork. They make their own weapons. They make their own everything. But they don't buy ore. They don't have high-level smithing techniques. They have all kinds of problems. They are falling behind on a world scale, and the orcs are just getting better. What else is a problem? Where are these orcs going? Well, you know, you gotta have these elves. Where are the elves? The elves are here. The elves have retreated to the northeast side of the continent. It is a series of islands on an inland sea. There's not really any city per se. The elves move between the islands kind of nomadically wherever they want to and just set up in these giant tree cities and just move between them throughout their life because they live a super long time. Humans, other races, not allowed. Half-elves, if they prove to be useful or are born there, can stay there. If they leave, they can't come back until they prove that they're useful. So these elves of the inland sea on the Elven Islands have a very good naval force. Underneath the islands, there's a series of cave networks where the drow live. At night, the drow will come up and go on shore, and they will fight the orcs, you know, nighttime to nighttime. Also, they have constant battles in the Underdark area that are interconnecting the two. So, in this world, the drow aren't evil. The drow are kind of shitty, but they're not evil. I'm thinking of having them practice an alternative form of slavery that's more like, gosh, what's it called? Is it journeymaning? Apprenticing? What was it called when they took people from England over to America and then made them spend 15 years of their life working to make the money back? I think that was... Oh, indenturing. It's indenturing. So, in Drow culture, it'll probably be something not slavery, but indenturing, like, where if you need to repay a debt, whether it's monetary or whether it's duty or obligation, you can go into a contract with someone where they take a rune on their face. And if you are profoundly unhappy with the person that you have indentured yourself to, the color of the rune will change. And so people who stray into the kind of slavery territory will have very obvious facial markers that are unable to be hidden. That will warn people, hey, this dude is a shitlord. I think something like that might be interesting in the world. To challenge the player's sense of morality, but also to kind of make these drow very gray. Not super evil, but also not shining beacons of justice, like the rest of the elves believe that they are. They're not, but they believe they are. I mean, they literally created humanity to use as a weapon, so they're not very shiny. Alright, east side of the countries, we've got this great place called the Sunpath Empire. It's a giant desert, and there's one thing in the middle of this desert, and that is a river. This river comes down from the dwarves' territory and goes over here. It goes west to east, and when the sun rises, bloop, it follows the path of the river, which is why it's called the Sunpath Empire. The entirety of their civilization is on this river, including their capital city, which is called the City of 100 Miles. That is literally a city of 100 miles. They live on the river, literally. There's one road through the entire empire. It's on the northern side of the river, and it follows the entire path of the river. It's several dozen feet away from the river, and it's just wide enough so that 4 wagons can travel 2 and 2 east-west. This is going to be... I think maybe it's because I've spent so much time developing the Sunpath Empire, but I really like it as a place. It's kind of a juxtaposition of the Middle East and China with a little bit of Mongolia. People move around in this place. It's very communist. You work for the day. You get, you get like breakfast, lunch, dinner, work chits. You work, they give you a thing, you go and get food with it. You go to a noodle shop. You go to a eat-in restaurant. You go to a nice place. You turn in your chit. You get the food. You go to sleep. You use your chit from your sleep chit. Boom. There you go. Work goes up and down the river as they harvest corn from the fields that are off of the river and are irrigated in the desert, and rice that is done in the river. So there's a very strict bureaucracy in the Sunpath Empire. Rice is grown along the river. If you mess with it, it's death. You can grow rice out a certain distance from the river, and then barges go up and down in either direction to carry goods. These people don't have any ability to gain their own metals, so they need to bargain with the dwarves. They have a highly efficient method of collecting goods, moving them in a direction, processing them, selling them to the dwarves, then bringing stuff back and working it. So, becoming a highly skilled artisan is moving up in caste. If you are a person who is a blacksmith, unlike everyone else, you probably live in one place. You have a pretty good home, but you wake up every morning, you make the same copy of a sword for 12 hours. You make 15, well, I don't really know how blacksmithing works, but you get the idea, right? You probably don't work on 15 different swords, although they might have a factory line now that I think about it. They might work on a single design of a sword and do the same work on one part of a sword over and over again, and then pass the rest of the work to the next person who is highly skilled. I've been really thinking about food here, because their cuisine is going to be corn and rice based. And the important part about these crops is they can be harvested twice in a year, which means that their population size is probably growing explosively. They don't have the cultivation in order to... They don't have the civilization to handle it. They're going to have a very serious burgeoning overpopulation problem with no way to solve it. And I'm betting, given the way overpopulation works, they are on the verge of going to war with someone yet. I don't know who, but they are going to be like, hey, join the army. So joining the army is a big thing. Because metal is rare, and they don't trust magic. They like everyone to... They have discipline and such. Martial arts and such are going to be big here. And I don't just mean like being a monk, but also being a fighter or a knight or something along those lines. Rangers. All of those are going to be really big. Anything that you can sit 10 guys down in a row and do katas with in order to improve, they are going to do it there. Their whole culture is based around mass replication of ability. Why is it called an empire, you might wonder? Well, there's some islands over here that they've absorbed into their empire, which is where they get, like, salt and some other necessary basics. It also helps encourage the fact that they have a ton of barges. So the final group is going to be called, I think it's called the Seaborn Folk. Seaborn Folk. Oh, sorry, the elves are called the Fenume Isles. The Seaborn Folk Home are your kind of Venetian city-states, collectory. They don't really work well together until the last couple of years. They're gnomes and halflings. The halflings used to use land caravans and like sail wagons to travel around. The gnomes had a bunch of small islands that they lived on, but they were getting crowded, and the two groups came together and were like, what if we stopped making these little tiny towns and started making cities and lived together? So people who have good land trade and people who have good water trade got together, and now they're becoming a major mercantile force. They have numerous independent republic cities. I don't mean democratic, I mean republic. They, if you are a very rich person, you are a person of importance. If you have a wealth over a certain level, you are allowed to vote. And multiples of that give you more votes. So super rich people are going to have a lot of votes. They vote on everything, and because it's a republic, voting is very difficult to get anything done. And so nothing really happens in this place. Life basically stays the same, which is great for everybody because they're all taking advantage of the newfound commerce. There's a lot to talk about, but not a lot to act on here. They're not at war with anybody. You can see that there's no like monster attacks. They live on a coastline. They have basically unchallenged sea power. Life is super peaceful in the Seaborn Folk Home. And more importantly, any race is allowed there, even supposedly monstrous races. And if you don't like it, they'll just treat you like you're a piece of garbage, right? Racists and people who cause violence are taken care of very stealthily by like halfling and gnome ninjas that just erase you from society. People who cause trouble disappear and no one asks questions. That's what life is like in the Seaborn Folk Home. So it's, you know, not a perfect utopia. It's definitely got a dark side to it. So that's kind of what the world is going to end up looking like on a basic level. A little freehold down here. Look at them. They're just going to be stuck all the way down here. You can see this little land bridge up here. Oh, freehold. You think you're so hot, but you're not. All right. So let's talk about my boy, the Demon Lord. There we are. What do I want to share here? Okay, so the Demon Lord, his name, I think I had it written down here. His name is Stalvin Black. He is a half vampire, half devil. You might call him the final boss of the campaign, although it's not clear to me where the campaign will end. To the players, he will appear to be the final boss. So, I guess I haven't really talked about it that much. When players die, they will keep all of their memories that they have gained so far, all of their experience points, and any items they have soulbound to them, which they can have up to 3, and they will snap back to the beginning of the game at the moment that they leave the cave. They won't know why this is happening. I'm not going to tell you either, because that would be massive spoilers. Oh, people are asking where the Demon Lord is located. He has a castle. Of course he has a castle. I mean, he's a Demon Lord. It's located right here. Unsurprisingly, it's basically central to everything. And unsurprisingly, it's also bordering on the Orcs' territory, who have wholeheartedly thrown in with him. Oh, we're going to be using tabletop audio all day. Tabletopaudio.com. Great music. Alright, so Demon Lord Stalvin Black. No one's really sure what his plan here. This guy's been around for 20 years. He's got 4 agents that work for him. They aren't sure who the agents are, right? They are called the Minister, the General, the Adjudicator, and the Factor. So the whole party snaps back whenever they die. Yes, that is correct. The whole party will snap back whenever they die. I will probably make a slight allowance for if they have, if they're high enough level that they can get a raise within 24 hours. I'll give them that 24 hours. But if they haven't got it by then they'll snap back anyway. So, this Demon Lord has everything he needs to run a government, right? He's got someone who works over the hearts and minds of his people. He's got someone to run his military. He's got someone to do his laws and justice. And he's got someone to run the economy. He has all the makings of a country, but doesn't have the land. And his plan right now is world domination. However, he sits in his castle and lets his agents do his bidding for them. People send him entreaties like, no, don't kill us. And he's like, I'm not actually killing you. That's somebody else. You should probably go talk to them. The most openly acting people are his minister, who is the one getting the orcs to go attack the clans of the Flow. That person is like riling them up with stories of monstrous tales and, you know, do it all in the name of do it for the Demon Lord, win one for the Gipper, that kind of thing. And his general, who's taking some orcs, but mostly like the dregs of society and some monsters, and attacking Royal Magnar. So this guy's... So while the minister is working, like, openly, but not on the front lines, she's like, telling people, get out there, go win. God will forgive you, that kind of deal. This dude is, like, on the front lines himself, on a war horse, a super badass general, but he's sending teams and armies out across all of Royal Magnar to go crush fools. He's using money, he's using all sorts of junk to get it done. Get it real done. I don't want to say where the other agents are working, because that'll be a thing. What else to talk about? Each country... Yeah, this is probably pretty important. I'm working on the names of the gods. And how the gods interact with each other. So there's one pantheon. All of the gods know each other. They interact with each other on a daily basis. The guy who brings the sun across the sky every day. You know, they all are like, wake up, Heros, you jerk. So, each specific country has its own way of looking at the gods, more or less. I was thinking maybe I'd give them all individual names, but given that there's so many gods and so many countries, that would be a massive pain in the neck. I decided to not do that. In the country, however, the thing that they worship about the god will be different. So, in a country that has listed base, they'll worship all of the things. about the god. So on the Fenume Islands, on the Elven Islands, they worship Hallel, the god of knowledge, who's kind of like the elven patron deity. But in the clans of the Flow, they believe that knowledge is power, and they believe that Hallel is a god of great power. They believe that gathering knowledge and telling it orally is the only way to keep it from falling into the hands of your enemy, that you must keep all knowledge secret and safe. The dwarves also believe in Hallel, but they believe in secrecy. They believe that you must tell Hallel your secrets, your grudges, your problems, so that no one else has to find out about it. You spill out all of your problems to Hallel, and the great Hallel Father takes them in and holds them for you and keeps them safe for you. The other gods are Nimble Among Us, who's the nature god, Whirlwind, the god of the tempest. Oh yeah, I should probably describe him a little bit. Whirlwind is kind of Zeusian, but also kind of knightly. So this is a god of sailing, but also of justice, right? When people have a thing that they need solved, or when they want to go someplace, Whirlwind is the god of travel. He's the god of decisions. He's the god of, well, the wind, obviously, and storms. He's about wiping away the slate. So he's a god of mercy. When a city is too filled with filth, Whirlwind will send a storm to clean out their sewers. And when an area is bereft of justice, he will send a storm of his followers to clear out the wicked. Nimble Among Us is our basic, like, nature deity, insofar as rather than have a human form, they have an animal form of being a deer. They have very, very exceedingly different interpretations in areas. In the Eastern Empire, where food is a huge thing, Nimble Among Us is known for blessing the harvest, which is a pretty big deal for, you know, crops that grow twice a year, like rice and corn. They want people to come in, and they want the god to be like, let's bring us more food. In the Royal Magnate, they believe that nature is violence. They believe that Nimble Among Us moves among the people to wipe out all of their enemies. So the Plains Kingdoms of the Monarchy of Royal Magnar have a very serious monster problem. They have like small caves full of gnolls and goblins, your kind of typical small D&D holdouts. And they think Nimble Among Us is either responsible for putting them there or should be responsible for getting rid of them. So in the Monarchy of Royal Magnar, Nimble Among Us is kind of worshipped as like an adventurer god. In the Dwarven Kingdom, nature is about eradicating monsters. When you talk about Nimble Among Us, you talk about the like gray dwarves that move to the deepest places and wipe out threats to society. Jitao, unsurprisingly, is an Eastern Empire god, the god of trickery. In the Seaborn folk, Jitao is liberation. Jitao travels around as this kind of shapeless shapeshifter. You know, you cannot give a form to Jitao, right? Is it a man? Is it a woman? Is it a rat? Is it a snake? The trickery god's true form is unknown even to its greatest followers. Does it even have one? Unknown. But when you see Jitao, and when you're from the Seaborn folk, they represent liberation. Jitao is kind of like their patron god of seceding from the rest of the world in the last century. When there were problems, when people were like, no, you can't do that. You know, you can't take our citizens from us. Jitao was there. People sent subjugation forces. People sent border enforcement armies. And those armies found themselves moving in the wrong direction. They found themselves poisoned or with bad meat or all sorts of unlucky things. And so Jitao became the god of that. On the other hand, until last century, Jitao was kind of tolerated in the monarchy of Royal Magnar, but now he's the god of rebellion. He is hated because he did these things. In the Dwarven Kingdoms, Jitao is the god of drunks. That shouldn't take too much expression to show how drunks and trickery go together. In the Clans of the Flow, Jitao represents travel, insofar as that also collides with Hallel. For them, Jitao and Hallel are twin gods. Trickery and knowledge have a very close place for them. And on Fenue, trickery is treated as the highest form of art. Illusion, deception. To the elves, these are what their heroes carry. They aren't about slaying their enemies with the sword. They're about creating the race of man, or unleashing a great plague upon the world to wipe out their enemies. Sending a single general with a flute to the front gate of a city to play it and show how unafraid he is. To convince an enemy that this man must have a massive army on the other side of the gate to act so carelessly and recklessly. The orc god, Guz and Guz, is the god of war. In the Eastern Empire, he's viewed as a god of chivalry. So for them, conflict takes the place of martial arts. They don't like magic that can't be easily controlled. And by that I mean the government can't control it. You know, you can't control who becomes a sorcerer. And if a wizard takes things down into their basement, unless you find their spellbook, you can't stop them from wizarding. Warlocks are completely untamable. So Guz and Guz is instead worshipped as chivalrous. Physical strength, martial prowess, dexterity, agility, form. All of these things are what Guz and Guz takes there. In the Seaborn folk, he's a god of loyalty. For them, the city guard and the bonds between the cities are what form their defense. They don't go to war. It's not a thing that they do. And so, they must rely on the threat of them forming an army to stop someone from coming after them. Unsurprisingly, this has led to open pledges of loyalty and military marches of their elite city guards to convince others that if you mess with one of us, you mess with all of us. That kind of deal. The god of death is called the Taker and is hated everywhere. No one likes the Taker. Openly worshipping the Taker is a death sentence. The god of light is Halos Firebringer. This is the guy that every morning rides the sun east to west on their chariot. That's what people believe anyway. It's probably actually true. They're the god of fire and light, truth, vigilance, and beauty, guidance and renewal. And then the final god is Lochnalos, the god of life. For some, life is the ocean. For others, life is domestication of animals. And for, I mean, rivers, tide, ocean, soil, there's a lot of very similar things happening here. There are three warlock patrons, of course. The Unnamed Masked, who is an archfey, who is unnamed. There's a lot of overlap between this person and Jitao. They're never seen in the same form. They're often big on trickery. There's a lot of world theory that they're the same person. The Fiend is the demon lord Stalvin Black, who is the one tormenting the world. As a half vampire, half demon, he's greatly gaining power over the years with his undead status. And the Great Old One is known as the Great Eye, whom shall remain hidden from. This is going to be kind of a Sauron-like deity that doesn't interact with people personally. They send agents out. There's lots of whispering. They see everything that they set their eye on. It's a terrible thing to be looked at by this entity. It's less Cthulhu you know, less madness kind of. Well, I mean, there's madness, but it's less, you know, gibbering dark and more, oh God, I can't believe he knows these things about me, about that, about everyone. I don't want to know everything about everything. I guess that kind of exhausts what I've got right now. I'll take questions from chat. There's a lot of people who've been talking to me so far. But I wanted to get all of this out of the way. English, I'm doing fine. I might be running a 5e campaign in the future. I haven't even finished prep or started even looking for players. Is the Demon Lord thing a fated event, or did he just call himself the Demon Lord? I mean, you can't stop a dude that's a half vampire or half demon from becoming the Demon Lord, right? Like, it's not like fate laid it out, but there wasn't anybody else to take the position. Let's see. There were other questions earlier. Yes, party snap back in time. I think I answered that one. Does this civilization use slaves? No civilizations in this world use slavery. Well, I mean, okay. There's a caveat to that. The monarchy of Royal Magnar, of course, uses the peon serf system. So, in a way, that's mostly slavery. In Freehold in the south, the starting area the players begin in, the count there is way more democratic. Not democratic, that's a bad word. He's way more liberal than everybody else. You pay your taxes, you can own your own homes, as long as you know, produce that kind of stuff. You have players tell you a secret about their character at the start of the campaign. Not for this campaign. I think in this campaign, the players are going to start with no memories. So they wouldn't have a secret to tell. Although, I did write down that there could be an alternative thing. If the players were from this world, then I think that having a backstory, giving it to me, forgetting about it in character, and then slowly revealing it as time passes. Like, every time they level up, they have a dream about their past. That might be interesting for the rest of the party to hear about each other in such a way, and for the audience. In the hero's origins, yeah, I haven't settled in any particular direction. I'm still kind of spitballing it. Where people sell themselves into it to pay off debts. That's definitely a thing, English, for the Drow. The Drow underneath the Finume Isles all have indentured servitude as a thing. There's no real outright slavery, however. You won't find people in chains working for no money. The Sunpath Empire is all about paying people for their work, right? They just have too many people. So people that don't get a chance to work or don't work, they do the chip-based system. So you work, you get, you know, a voucher to get something, food, sleep. Is the magic different in this world? I don't know how to answer that. I pretty much intend to use stock 5e Player's Handbook as far as magic goes. So, let's see what I need to do to finish the campaign prep. First, I need to... things to do. I probably won't do this tonight. We're gonna wrap up in like the next 10 or 15 minutes here. We're just doing high-level shit. It's good to like get this all out and talk to people about it and hear questions, because I've been working on this privately for, I don't know, like a month and a half, maybe 2 months. In slow amounts. Discarding things that I don't like. But I haven't actually talked to anyone about it yet. Okay, so things to do. I need to write about each race from the point of view of the writer. So whoever writes this book, the tutorial book that players read at the beginning of the game, they will have something to say about each of the races in the world. And I should probably get all of the things. So, like, elves believe they're haughty and superior and all of that junk. Dwarves are super laid back, except when it comes to matters of honor. Contents. There we go. There's probably subchapters for each race. There are. And they are dwarf, elf. Well, I should put them over here in the races section. Halfling, human, dragonborn, gnome, half elf, half orc, and a tiefling. Man, I haven't even thought about tieflings yet. Thought about everybody else, though. What else do I need? Finish maps for Unidis. I've got basic design of freeholds area. Alright, so let's talk about freeholds. I kind of got a good idea of its ecology. Down in the southeast, there are the ancient ruins where nobody goes, etc., etc. Those are patrolled by a party of adventurers who keep anything from coming out. And they live in Flemia, the nearby village. They kind of get a steady income to just, like, travel out there, take a look. Maybe once a week they might fight something small. And if they find anything bigger, run back to the large town of Bonderact. Find some more adventurers. And then go back and defend Flemia from whatever's coming out of the ruins. So, there's not a lot going in or out of there, specifically because there's someone stopping. The rest of Freehold has a druid that has taken on several apprentices that goes around and blesses the land, but they act in secret. So if you are a good person, if you leave out iconography of nature gods and light gods, if you treat your neighbors well, and people say good things about you, the druid will stop by your fields and will bless them. This is what the people believe. Is it true? Probably part of that is true. The druid lives in this eastern forest over here. Between Flemia and Bonderac, there's a slight problem. Not exactly of banditry, but of, like, people who illegally take tolls. They're people, they're like dudes who don't have any work to do, that think they're tough guys, and are keeping the area safe, citizen. We'll escort you down the road for the price of 3 coppers. That kind of deal, right? Like, they just like getting drunk and traveling up and down the road and pretending like they're doing something important. So they've, like, appointed themselves. They're basically benign bandits. That kind of deal. And every once in a while, the city guard of Bonderac will come and chase them off. And then they'll come back again after a few weeks. So that's the kind of ecology you'll get between Flemia and Bonderac. The druid handles the eastern forest, but within that forest, they've created this kind of cycle. The giant ants there can't eat most of the plants. So they cut the plants down and carry them back to the ant nests. In the ant nests, there are fungus molds, fungus spores and molds. They consume that content, and then they explode outwardly. That consumed content makes itself into the fungus, which the ants then consume. The exploded spores are carried by the ants out to start consuming other parts of the forest, thus ensuring the cycle of life between the ants and the funguses. What eats the ants? Giant birds. Well, they don't have to be that giant, because giant ants are giant. There is a pretty savage race of birds of various types that just live throughout the forest. And so we've got molds, we got basic plant monsters, We've got giant ants, and we've got birds. And probably, like, bears and wolves and all those kind of small things. But there's a very... I want the whole campaign to kind of have this... Why hasn't the world exploded yet? Right? If you've got a Taurus running around, it should be laying waste to everything. What's holding the Taurus in check? So when you go into these places, I want... Even if the players don't ask it, even if the audience doesn't ask it, I'm asking it. What's holding this in place? What is keeping the giant ants from just consuming everything? Well, they can't actually eat any of the plants. They have to wait for the fungus. Alright, there's been several questions. Is the fungus hazardous to humanity? Yes. It is horribly, horribly poisonous. I mean, yellow mold and all of that stuff is considered a very serious enemy in Dungeons and Dragons. Let's see here. I think it's got its own stat block, right? Are you familiar with the world-building tools of Donjon? Not only am I familiar with it, I'm currently looking it up right now. I don't care about the world-building tools at the moment, but I do care about looking up yellow mold. Is that not in here? Could have sworn it was on Donjon. It might be in the DMG. That's the player's handbook. Mold. Mold Bay. Molded. Here we go. So there's all kinds of funguses. Gas spores, shriekers. These are 0 challenge, half challenge, quarter challenge. There are plenty of these to use for low-level campaigns. Not campaigns, but, you know, giant ant level of circles of life. What's keeping this forest from being overrun? The druid. The druid is keeping this forest from being consumed from the outside. When new predators introduce themselves into the area that destroy the trees, that destroy the fungus, that destroy the ants, that destroy the birds, he stops them. So potentially the druid could be both an enemy and an ally. If the players go in there and start wiping out giant ants for a quest, it's gonna cause some very serious problems for the druid, and the druid's gonna show up and be like, get the F out. However, maybe there'll be an event where something shows up from out of those elven ruins and swooshes its way north. And now the forest is being invaded by some ancient terror, and the druid's like, yo, I can't handle this myself. I need you to get up in here and protect these ants. North of the forest is mine, quarry, really. And I think this is going to be where we get, like, our ants, or not our ants, our orcs, our gnolls, our goblins. Something like that gets uncovered early, not instantly, not immediately, but like a week or two into the game. Enough time that the people who are there and see it happen are like, oh, this is new. This happened after you showed up, and it's bad. Like, people are dead, people are running away. North of there is a fishing village. People just live along the coast and fish. The quarry is a salt mine, so probably it's going to be very dry, and the dungeon is going to be less about, you know, whatever society lives in there will be some sort of underground enclave that the salt mine connects to, that the miners accidentally opened up. And that society will probably have a lot of salt-based stuff. Like, they'll have a lot of jerky. They'll sell to other monsters these blocks of salt. I don't really know how or what it will be, but the fact that they live in a salt mine underground will be a central focus of whatever dungeon is there. Bondarak will have its own troubles. It's a large enough town that thieves and maybe an assassin or two wander around. There's not a huge amount of adventurers. I'd say in all of Freehold there might be like 8 adventurers total, and I would count the druid as one of them. The party that takes care of the southern area, the enclave of movie critics, because they're so filled with salt. Oh, very funny, chat. Very funny. Hilarious. So Bondarak's going to have all of your, you know, town problems. There'll probably be not like a thieves guild, but like a thieves guild offshoot. There'll be a den of criminals, like 10 or 15 guys that you can go to. Are the adventurers ensuring not to kill everything in the ruins to ensure their economy? No, the adventurers aren't heading into the ruins because it's so dangerous that if they go deep, they won't come back. Their job isn't to clear the ruins because that's too difficult for them. Their job is to keep nature in balance by making sure anything that escapes dies. They aren't exterminators, they're wardens. And the thing that they're warding is the entire freehold area from the ruins. So, I mean, just think about it. It's one thing to kill something in broad daylight in an open area with all of your friends nearby. It's quite another to adventure into the cold, dark, cramped tunnels where you can get lost or split up and fight something down there that's lived there for hundreds or thousands of years and has the advantage of home ground and knowledge. So I mean, it's not that they're cowards per se, it's just that they're not idiots. And the people who are hiring them are also not idiots. They don't want people to go down there and die. That would be bad. There isn't an unlimited supply of adventurers here. This is it. Skyrim dwarf ruins or more realistic ruins. So this place is a double ruin. It's from the ancient empire that came about during the Age of Gods. But that has slowly sunk into the ground. And on top of that civilization came the Elven Empire. When the humans kicked them out, this elven city became dangerous. All of the ancient empire technology and monsters that the elves were holding back are now non-functional. Those monsters are escaping. The creations that they made are escaping. Their magic is running loose. The elves themselves had less so magic. You know, it's one thing to know how to use a computer. It's quite another thing to be able to build one by hand, right? So the elves, they can build stuff by hand, they just can't build computers. This is a metaphor, but the people of this time period and the people on Freehold, not only can they not build computers or use them, they also can't build or use whatever the elves made, right? So golems coming out of the ruins wouldn't be surprising. Some sort of flesh monstrosity, maybe a demon or devil or two that has gotten loose from its containment area, right? I think that once I begin designing the dungeon, I'll know more. But here's the key. This will be a dungeon that the players won't be able to undertake, right? At the beginning of the game, this will be far too powerful for them. Perhaps later in the game, when they go out, they adventure a few times, they die a bunch, they come back at like level 9 and they're like, wait, we're strong enough now. We can actually go explore this place that's right at the very beginning. Next time we die, we should probably stop by there and see what's up. Then they die and they go see what's up. This western forest is going to be like the beast forest. The druid kind of stays out of here. It self-regulates. It's just going to be low-level goblin tribes. They kind of trade with the humans. They kind of don't. They're scattered. They're not a super serious threat, just like most goblins, you know. I'm not saying that someone dying isn't a bad thing, but they're more afraid of the humans than they are of... the humans are of them. So, they live very scattered lives, trading garbage to the humans for pennies. They fight wolves for hides, for instance. Lay very terrible traps, hoping that animals will fall in them. So most of the quests that are heading out here will be, you know, kill goblins or maybe aid the goblins. Could be goblins asking for contracts. Could happen. But additionally, there's a dragon. As I mentioned earlier, there are only a certain number of dragons. In this place, there is a dragon that sleeps in the woods and kind of moves around. And if you cause too much trouble in the forest, the dragon shows up and is like, yo, what's up? You in my forest? I think it's probably going to be a bad dragon. It'll probably be a green dragon. And that's why there's all this smoky, poisonous swamp. It's because the green dragon has turned it all smoky and poisonous and swampy. So, Yeah, that's the early game for these players. Once they decide to leave Bondurant and head up into the Kingdom of Royal Magnar, that's when we'll be moving. So this area, I would expect to be like a level 1 to 3 area. My hope is to, I don't want to say contain, but that's probably a good word. To contain the players to that level of content in that area. The quarry will probably be too strong for them. If they go into the quarry at like level 1 or 2, they'll run into a ton of orcs, and the orcs will just be like, whoa, what's up? You're dead. If they go into the Elven Ruins, they're dead. I want to make it very clear early on that this is Dark Souls. If you go to a place where you're not prepared, if you ignore the warning signs, if you fight like 20 dudes at once, you die. That's simple. I don't want to keep them on this island physically, right? That doesn't make sense in the story, because the passage from Bondurant to the capital is a major road. Freehold, even if it pretends it's not, is a county of Royal Magnar. And so they want to make sure that taxes and goods and all of that junk are flowing to and from the city. And by city, I mean capital. So when the players head out north, they're going to be finding a step up in challenge. It's difficult to find, but in the player's hand guide, and I think even in the Dungeon Master's guide, it lists off challenge level blocks. Like level 1 to 4, the players will face things of a certain type. They'll have spells with a certain level of power. And once you get up to the 5 to 9 level, you're in a whole different ball game. And that's where Royal Magnar is going to be, is the find at 5 to 9 level. It's not that there won't be 1 to 4 level challenges, right? As I mentioned, there'll be small thorps and hamlets and villages all over the plains of Royal Magnar that probably will have jobs like